Hi there, and welcome to this month's edition of Real Estate Matters with Claire Gerton and myself, Ayse Clay. This is a show about matters in real estate, that real estate matters and is important, and how real estate affects us and our local neighborhoods. Because for some, or many, real estate is our largest investment. So both Claire and I are residential realtors, focused right here on the main line and surrounding areas. And right now we continue to be in interesting times in the real estate market, and what we aim to bring you are actual stories, scenarios, and some terms to help break it down so might assist in the understanding of residential real estate, and we hope to add in a little bit of humor as well.
Have to do that.
Yeah.
Hi, Ayse.
Nice to see you,
Claire.
Claire.
It's so great to be here with you as always. And our topic today, we've decided that we're really going to do a deep dive into the art of staging a home, a property for sale. And I mean that art, really the ins and outs of what staging is, the process of staging, how it helps, how things that we can talk about, and to stage or not to stage? That is the question for today. So let's basically, home staging, we both agree, is preparing a private residence for a quick sale in the marketplace, and by either styling or furnishing or decluttering or adding, all different versions of staging, which we're going to get into a little bit more specifically later on in the episode. But we thought we'd start with, do you have a recent story that we can kind of talk about or that you could share so that we can respond to and kind of go through what staging really is?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I'm excited to kind of break staging down a little bit, home staging, as you might call it.
Yeah.
And as you said, different ways of home staging. The story I'm going to tell or share today has some of those elements. However, once we share the other ways to home stage, this is just one of the ways.
Like it.
If that makes sense. Yeah. So, working with a family who had built a home in the local TE school district, and I like to preface that because there's so many memories when someone builds their own home and is the original owner in a home and then decides to move. So sometimes kind of parting with that is a challenge in itself.
Interesting. How long were they there before they decided to list?
They were there about 15 years or so.
All right, so a decent amount of time. Did they raise family, kids?
Exactly. So they raised their children there. They are now, empty nesters. Their children are off to school. And, you think about all of the memories around all of that, and even building the home as well, because that's a labor of love.
Sure.
Also. So they've decided, hey, we're going to not only downsize the space of our home, coming from about 5,000 square feet with the basement that might even be 7,000 square feet. So a good size home, and then a little over an acre of yard space. So they wanted to downsize both. Now that they don't need all of that space, they no longer need their school district to serve them. They were thinking about moving closer to their boat in Maryland and have a small little space.
So 15 years is sort of an interesting time period for the age of a house, right? So not brand new.
Oh, yeah.
And not quite needing a complete gut job. So that poses some interesting parameters.
Oh, yeah, several actually.
Okay.
Which I love that you noted that. Their taste was still modern day, which is great. Everything was in beautiful condition.
Maintenance-wise.
So to jump back a little bit, we were dealing with a couple outside challenges. The home was mostly stucco, and in real estate, stucco can equal moisture. Stucco gets a bad rap.
Yep.
So
another show.
Yeah, exactly. Another show, another time. The home behind this home, it was sitting on a flag lot. So that means the other home behind it was directly behind the home, and there's not much privacy if you're sitting on the back deck of the subject property.
Okay.
And so that was another challenge. And then we're also talking about the inside challenges.
Right.
So today's buyers, not all of them, but they're looking for, maybe the whiter like cabinets in the kitchen, the granite or quartz countertops, and so
hardwood floors throughout.
Some of the more modern day finishes. Price-wise, we're somewhere around $1 million. And I'm sharing these because it helps paint the picture of maybe why the stager suggested what she suggested. So as part of our marketing plan, we will offer, if the homeowner feels it's a value, to bring in a home stager. And it usually is worth it, at least just to have that conversation.
And when you offer that, you offer a consult. So you say, here's someone who can come and consult. You cover that. And if they'd like to go, this home seller would like to go forward with that, then they can just make those decisions. Is
Absolutely.
that how you handle that?
Yeah, and in this instance, the home stager came over starting really at the front door and making suggestions as she went through room by room, makes her notes, and then comes back with a written report to myself and the homeowner with photos and verbiage of ideas of taking that space and maybe how to transform it slightly.
Okay.
I like to be very cost conscious when we're talking about staging because that homeowner is departing the home.
Right.
But maybe there's ways that you can change the look of something, sometimes at no cost, bringing furniture from one room to the other, taking away, which is a really cost-effective strategy, taking items away.
Rather than bringing in full furniture replacements. And
Correct.
So is there a basic formula for rate of return on the home staging?
I don't have one, but do you?
No, and that is a question. I'm curious if maybe there is some sort of...
I think we'll have some statistics to share later in the show, but I don't have the exact. It seems, though, that days on market in our lessons, when a homeowner and agent properly prepare a home for sale, and sometimes there's... it seems that they sell for more money. What that for, is subjective.
Yes, it's subjective, yeah.
So there's some...
Thinking out loud a little bit, maybe that would be a question is, we're helping, a home stager helping us know, helping a seller know what is the rate that you can get out of the least amount of cost. Yeah.
We find that homes that are staged and there is some advanced preparation and not just here it is hitting the market and it's everyday normal setting, they definitely tend to move quicker and appeal to a larger audience because, and I love this statement, the way we live in a home is not the way we present it to market. We live normally with things sitting out to look at things, and the way we present it to market is a more staged fashion, a new construction, almost as if no one lives there. And so they're two opposite things, and that's how we want to bring it to market, right? I always like to say, like, when you're going out on a date, for the first time, meeting somebody for the first time, you're probably not going to come in sweatpants, hair in a ponytail, no makeup on. Maybe I'm speaking for myself. You're going to, put your best face on, maybe take a shower, put some nice clothes, press clothes on perhaps. And that's how you
think about it for listing a home as well.
Bringing home to market.
That's a good analogy. I like it.
So in this situation, the home sellers, the home stager made some recommendations throughout the home, taking some things away, which is great. Again, so cost effective.
What kind of things did they take away? Was it, pictures off walls?
Some large pieces of furniture.
Just big pieces that took up space?
Sure. We always want to make that feeling that there's plenty of space to walk through a hallway or to get in a doorway and move around and navigate a room. In this instance, the stager was mainly focused on the kitchen. Beautiful, large, open kitchen, open to the eating area, open to the family room, great vistas of the backyard. The kitchen was from 15 years ago, immaculate condition, no stains, no scratches, beautiful condition. There was no backsplash. And so depending on what price point you are, the buyers have different expectations depending on the price point that the house is. Buyers have different expectations of what they will get out of that for the most part. And for a just slightly less than $1 million home, they were expecting, perhaps in the stager's eyes, some backsplash, not just the drywall, not the old Corian countertops with the sharp edges, something more modern day. And
what were the cabinets?
So the cabinets were darker. We could have taken it to another level of painting them a light color, more appealing color.
Changing the hardware.
Sure. In this instance, the stager recommended some just very neutral backsplash and neutral quartz countertop. It really was a sharp and nice contrast to the darker cabinets. We could have, as mentioned, painted the cabinets as well. We were looking for kind of that most return on spending and being very strategic about it. In the dining room, it was a very like burgundy, bold burgundy color, very heavy. The drapes were very heavy, dark, almost like a medieval, not to that extreme, but maybe to paint that picture. So the stager wanted to do light and bright, had the sellers remove the dark, again, no cost, remove the dark window treatments.
You just take them down.
Not put anything up. The vistas were beautiful out the front. There was like a lake across the street. Couldn't beat that. So really to maximize on that and just tone down the overall feeling of the dining room color to a much lighter, more neutral palette. So those were some of the suggestions the stager made for these homeowners, and they were very receptive. They understood and were able to digest those suggestions, where not every seller wants to, has the time to implement some of these staging suggestions. Yeah.
So they did. They chose to do they replaced the backsplash. They did the things in the kitchen that she suggested. They did the things in the front room, dining room. And then were there other things that they did before they went to market, or was that?
Mainly from a staging perspective.
Okay.
Yet after several months of being on market, no bona fide offers were coming in.
Okay.
So
that data point
with that
is
data,
a pretty clear message.
Noted.
Yes.
So do we do something with the price? Do we have the stager back to take another hardy look?
Right.
We did both.
Okay.
First, we started with, bringing the stager back for another look. Some of the feedback that was coming in was, I can see the house directly behind me for $1 million. I don't want to see the home right behind me. We need more privacy. So in that instance, the homeowner decided to plant some arborvitaes for privacy, which is a natural, very earthy green kind of look.
Good solution.
Good solution for kind of a natural border versus maybe a fence. And the neighbors in back set up high. So those arborvitaes were we couldn't change that setting. So you have to think of your controllables and things that are out of your control.
That house is going to be there. So they can, you can't control that.
Can't pick it up and move it.
Right.
I mean, you could if you had an endless budget, but most people don't. But the arborvitaes seem to be the most cost-effective way to have that privacy. And then the stager came in and took a look at a couple other things. So she had in their main bathroom, kind of going from the dark wood to just painting it, as we were talking about in the kitchen, to a lighter color. I think the trees made the most difference for that. And then combined with a couple more staging pieces in the home. So staging might not just be taking away. Right. It could be adding and adding outside, right? In the instance of adding the trees, which I thought was an interesting suggestion. So in combination with some of the outside staging and inside, we decided to make a change of price and then grab some updated exterior photos.
So you changed the photos. So a price improvement.
Yes.
Those few little tweaks, let's call them,
sure,
on the staging, and then what happened?
Yeah. So with additional photos, we kind of implemented all three strategies at one time, and then with a little bit more time, was able to lead to a successful
contract.
Yeah, for those sellers, so they could move on with their lives. which was great. And I love that staging story. They were more of the ones that were open to listening and taking some feedback from the get-go, and then revisiting that when things weren't exactly going our way, basically.
I like that too, is that sometimes we think that it's just put it on the market and that's it. But there's so much even before that has to happen to list, and even during that happens sometimes, that helps improve the situation, and to get to a desirable goal of selling the home for timely, and that works for the seller. So I think that's a really good story. It illustrates, it helps a lot for anyone who's considering selling.
Yeah, hopefully that painted the picture, no pun intended.
Yeah, it sure did. All right, so we went through a lot there. So if we were talking about, kind of the levels of staging, so what would you say the very first one would be? Just a basic decluttering?
I think that's probably, having looked at some stats, that almost most agents would recommend just a decluttering, because there really isn't, when you think about it, any cost associated to that. Our culture tends to be very collective, likes to collect items, and keeps a lot of items in their home that maybe aren't really serving us, but that's, again, a whole nother show.
Right.
And sometimes when there's so much personal items in a home, it's really not serving the home. It's not helping to show the home off in the manner we need to. When somebody's buying a home, they're not typically buying the items in the home.
And it sometimes serves as a distraction to imagining your items, your things in the home.
Very well said.
I'm currently working with some sellers, and something that we're considering is, besides bringing in a consultant for staging to say, let's move this, let's take this out. The other thing is they are downsizing considerably, is that they have some furnishings and things that they would like to either give away or sell, but are not necessarily inclined to do all that work themselves. So we're thinking about enlisting a company, a place who come in and say, yes, I will take this for consignment, and go through the home. And we've made an appointment to do that, to say, we can take this for consignment. And that's helping this specific seller visualize, okay, it's not so overwhelming. I can have support here and help when the time comes. So for putting it on the market, we're going to leave those big items, some of them, but then they'll be tagged to go to consignment once it goes under market.
And you make a great point, because when you sell a home, just that task in itself can be so heavy for some home sellers, especially if they've not done it in a while, or there's other factors in their life that's just, it's so much to think
health,
about.
you name it. Yeah,
exactly. So if you can break it down in steps for them, and so I like to share with the homeowner, if they hear the word staging and the hairs go up like, too much for me right now.
Right.
I like to say, well, by decluttering, we'll use that piece as the staging item. By taking things away, you're actually going to be doing it anyway. Why don't we do it at a time where you can digest it? You're doing it on your terms. In advance.
In your time.
In your time. You're not feeling rushed, pushed to meet that deadline of closing date. And you can say, okay, some of these items are going to family. Some of these items are going to the trash. And some of these items I'm donating. And this last bucket I'm taking with me and moving on. So you can have as many or as little buckets as you want, but you can take your time, because going through your personal item can be very taxing. So if you think you're going to take a lot of time, do it ahead of the game. So that is another service, also folks that help, take away, which is a great service, I think, that we can connect home sellers with as well.
We've talked about, I don't know if the word we use, vendors or our strategic partners, I guess is what we like to say. So there are many that we can bring in to help with these topics and these items.
Absolutely. And so we were mentioning the very basic is taking away, which a lot of us can do on our own or with the help of a family or friend can actually take away to throw away or store off site if it's something you want to keep. And I like as cost effective as possible. So you could take these items away and put them in your basement in a nice organized pile. Take these items out of the house and store them in your garage in a nice neat pile. For some people, those areas are already filled with items, or take it away to an off-site storage facility, rent it for a couple of months while you're in your transition period. And in my mind, it's extremely cost effective to do that, and it's out. You've already done some moving in advance of later on. So you're, in my mind, you're actually a couple steps ahead if you think about it. So to me, that would be kind of the most basic way of staging a home, and most popular way is actually to take away. I love it. Easy.
Of course, there's the times when you've moved from the property. You found the home and you've taken all your things and there's a few things left. Sometimes it's empty. Then comes another level of staging, which would be to have somebody come in and actually bring in furniture.
You could do that. Some homeowners don't feel there's value in that. However, from a buyer perspective, you know, you're going to have buyers who aren't very visual at all. And some people can really create something from an empty room and say, oh, I know exactly where things are going to go. We have your other sector of the population who aren't very visual, and they look at a blank space and they feel completely overwhelmed. How am I going to even set this up? How big is the space? No, the space feels too small. When you actually don't have any furniture in a room, you might think automatically it's going to make a space feel bigger, but because there's nothing to give you the scale of the space that's sitting in a room, sometimes it can actually make it feel smaller. So maybe renting furniture or pulling back some furniture for a space is what you might need to do in order to create, well, a warm vibe for when home buyers come in and look at it, to give the space some scale and to basically paint a picture for that buyer who cannot visualize how to utilize a space, and it could be as simple as a living room.
We should also point out that that comes with a cost.
That comes with a cost, a rental cost.
A rental cost, and that somebody to do it, come in and take it out, bring it in and take it out when it's sold. And then that would also be something to consider in maybe the price point of the property, as what would be appropriate cost to do.
Exactly. So there is a cost for that, and that to me is if the property is vacant, or if the furniture just totally doesn't fit the space, which often happens. We like to sometimes oversize our furniture. I can be guilty of that too. And it makes the space go really small. But often we don't have to get to that point where we're bringing in furniture. And of course it would be up to the homeowner, right, to then decide and share in that expense. Yeah, exactly.
And then there's that staging that we would like to call, well, it is called virtual staging. So what's your experience with virtual staging?
Virtual staging is very interesting because you are staging on the photograph, but then in person, there's nothing there. So I think it can work from a marketing perspective. And it's amazing, the technology today, to actually not realize you're looking at a virtually staged home.
Right.
Where furniture has been sized just for that space on the photo.
Right. Real Chip and Joanna like.
Oh, yes.
My favorite part of that is like, oh, that's what that's going to look like.
And
right?
Exactly, and it's often using very today stylized furniture.
Right.
So sometimes I'm looking at photos and not even realizing that furniture is not even there. Like I really have to blow it up, and sometimes it's still even the photo.
Right.
Even hard to tell.
Yeah, really good. What's the vendors out there that do it?
Amazing.
Right. Yes.
The plus of that is with almost the home search starting online, basically for so many home buyers, it really will pull somebody in and give them an idea visually of how to construct and lay out a room space for themselves.
And it will attract them to come out to the property.
Yeah.
That's a plus of having a virtual
Absolutely.
staging.
You can't get an offer without actually having a buyer come see the home.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. And then once they're there, that buyer might have a challenge because there's nothing in the room.
Yeah, so it could work a little the other way as well. So
it could, but getting that buyer to the home is first and foremost important.
I would agree with that.
So talking through all the pluses and minuses of each stage, how to stage appropriately for the space is typically the best, because there's so many layers that different staging avenues that one can take. And for homeowners, we have to remember it's not always a cost to it, right?
Right.
And think about that.
And it's not a one size fits all.
Correct.
So that, we broke that down into several different ways, and really it comes down to what each individual property needs.
Sure, and how willing a homeowner is going to be. How much time do we have to do this?
Right. Budget.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of things to think about.
But worth doing that mental work with your seller.
Yeah, because in today's market, it's been for maybe the past 20 years, if not more, that, we're also visual. We're going to first see it visually on the computer. It's no longer just in past years, the front photo of the home. It's all the interior photos. And
then you can blow them up and really see, oh, is that a bookcase there? Or is that,
And we want to be able to paint that picture.
A brick wall?
Exactly. Paint that picture for the buyer, because they're our audience.
Yep.
If that makes sense. And I think we have some stats to share.
Yes,
just a couple little stats from the National Association of Realtors. These are last year's stats from 2020, as 2021 hasn't closed out yet. But 82%, we'll say 82% of buyers' agents, so that's an agent representing a buyer, said staging a home made it easier for a buyer to visualize the property as their future home.
That's a pretty big percentage. If you think 80+% of buyers' agents say, yeah, that visualization is super important when it comes to
I think it's even important for me as just a regular person to kind of paint that picture. So I love that stat. And then 53% of sellers' agents say that staging a home will decrease the time on the market. For some, that's so key, of a home staying on the market for a little bit of time. Because as you know, when homes stay on market, automatically there's, from a buyer's perspective, something that they think about. What's wrong with the home? And sometimes it just can be, oh, we haven't really painted the picture yet enough for the buyer to see themselves in the home.
I find it interesting comparing those two stats. So 80+ of buyers agents, think it's important to visualize, and 50% of sellers agents think it's important to spend the time and the money to stage. That's just kind of an interesting comparison, is that it seems like, what happens to the other 50% of those sellers? Just kind of out of curiosity, I think it's an interesting comparison.
For sure. And perhaps there's other marketing that's happening behind the scenes.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
That they feel may have also aided in the sale. I don't know.
Right. Yes.
I don't know.
And then their location or other factors that maybe they feel like, oh, we don't really need to take the time, or it's already staged.
Yeah. And one other piece I just wanted to quickly bring up, also staging could be from a maintenance aspect, that in that story we didn't really know. And that to me can be staging also, chipping and peeling paint.
Yes.
That needs to be, adjusted.
Power wash, siding, absolutely.
Absolutely. So really, if you're confused about what staging is or want to learn more, connecting with your local agent is going to help maybe break that down a bit based on your own scenario, right? If you're thinking about selling. And often then it's best to sync up with the agent way before you're thinking of selling, because for some people it may take a lot more time than you hope to get through that.
And some things that you might not even thought about. For example, the arborvitaes. You've been living in that house for 15 years. They didn't think about it perhaps until they thought about what it would be like to be a buyer, and the feedback from the buyer. So feedback is really important. I agree with you. Syncing up with your agent, with your local agent, is a great way to get started and get prepared for, getting your house ready to list.
Yeah, and that preparation piece is so key to do in advance. A lot of what we do is so far in advance of actually then putting the home on market. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Where are we? We ready to wrap it all up?
Yeah.
We did a lot today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for speaking about home staging and breaking that down a little bit more, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is something, again, we always come at the end of our program, we always say, oh, we could do another one. We could do another one. So we will. We'll continue to do more.
We shall. On to another topic.
All right.
Thanks so much, Claire.
Thanks, Ayse.
Great to see you.